Hello BookTube. Apologies again about the lighting. Again, I'm filming at night time. I am bringing you my December wrap up. I feel like December has been a really long month and I have got so much reading done. I haven't read particularly fast, so I just feel like the month's been quite spread out and like loads has got read. Anyway, never mind, let's get into it. First, I am cheating a bit. I did read most of this in November, but I finished it in December, so I'm counting it here. I have done a separate review below, so I'm not going to say much about it other than to say I was a bit disappointed. I found it quite a slog. It is one of those classics that I think is quite heavy going. Like it's a thing that you're kind of glad you read, but it was hard work. And there, the writing is spectacular, but yeah, hard work. Then I read The Drowning of Arthur Braxton by Caroline Schmales. This is a weird one. I didn't like it, and I know a few people have been cropping up with this on BookTube and have absolutely raving about it, loved it, best book ever. I have a feeling that I don't like this whole magical realism thing that is coming into a lot of places. I find it silly. Either it's a complete fantasy world and it's sort of the unrealisticness is feasible, or it's normal. I don't like magical realism where it's a normal situation and there's magic in it. It just seems stupid to me. I just don't like it. Basically, there's not much I can say about this without spoiling it. It's a coming of age story about this boy called Arthur Braxton, and it's kind of mythical and almost a retelling of a lot of fairy tales that I can't say the names of because again it'll give it away. And yeah, it's basically, we start off with a girl, Laurel, and she's working in this bath, like magical baths, like, you know, in the Roman times they had these baths. It's one of these, but it's been turned into like a healing situation and people go there to be healed and things. I'm not sure what time period that was. I think it was in like the 80s. It's not sort of in the old days, but yes. So we follow her to begin with, and she starts to get sort of worrying predictions from one of the sort of psychics there, and he keeps telling her, you know, run for your life and things like this. Then we zip forward to the future and meet Arthur, who is being bullied and has an unfortunate incident with a picture and Facebook and seeks shelter and is sort of drawn to this bath, which is now a ruin, and stuff ensues basically. You're not quite sure what's going on, whether it's a ghosty situation or anything like that. And it is, I mean, there's twists and turns in it, but I just found it all a bit unrealistic and too far-fetched for my liking. Like, I know it's not meant to be realistic, but it just bothered me. It's like, either be real life or don't be real life. Don't pretend to be a bit of both. Don't do it. Then, something a bit different for me, How I Learned to Drive by Paula Vogel. This is the second sort of play that I've read. Well, I say second, I read a book of plays by Oscar Wilde, so that's cheating. The second book of play I've read. I say play because this is only one. And I really enjoyed this actually. I think I would have loved to see this at the theatre. It's unfortunate how I come to get this. I was looking into learning to drive and came across How I Learned to Drive, thinking it was a novel. I thought, oh, that could be interesting, bought it, turned up and it was this play. But I enjoyed reading it. It was something a bit different. It was basically about childhood abuse, but it kind of was one of those things, a bit like Lolita, that questions how innocent the child was and how much she knew what she was doing, sort of thing. It's basically to do with this girl and her uncle who taught her to drive, hence How I Learned to Drive. And it's just really interesting. I would have really liked to see it performed. But yeah, that was that. And then I read The Ocean at the End of the Lane by Neil Gaiman. Now again, the magical realism stuff bothered me slightly. This is my first Neil Gaiman and I've heard so much about him. I've been really excited about actually getting to read one of his novels, and I have to say I didn't love it. Didn't get that magical bubble that everybody else seems to get. I mean, it was enjoyable. I enjoyed reading it. Basically, this is about a boy who he ends up, I think he's a man now. He ends up at his childhood lane, because I think he's run away from a funeral, I believe, so sort of making an escape. He ends up back in his childhood home, and there is a house at the end of the lane that he ends up visiting, and somebody who he used to know and who used to know him when he was a child ends up meeting him, and it sort of opens up a whole world of his childhood that he had kind of forgotten. and magical stuff and stuff like that. And it was interesting, it was fun. I wouldn't rant and rave about it, and it didn't give me the warmest of feelings, like everyone else seems to have got, but it was okay. I'm hoping that I like other Neil Gaimans more. I've got Neverwhere to read next, so I think that's probably more my cup of tea. Then I read Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. Mary Shelley's Frankenstein. This was good. I am having trouble with classics at the moment, I think, because it was so recent after Moby Dick. I kind of was like, but it was interesting, and it's only short. Basically, what this is about, everybody knows, so I won't go into. But what I found fascinating from reading it is that I think, sort of, in general usage, we think Frankenstein is the monster. At least I did. I don't know. I don't know if that's a thing. And it turns out that Frankenstein is actually the creator of the monster. The monster doesn't actually have much of a name. So yeah, I found it interesting that Frankenstein is the creator, and actually in a lot of ways he is the monster in this book for me. Basically, he creates this creature and is so disgusted by his own creation that he casts it out into the world. He doesn't want anything to do with it. He actually goes into quite a delirium about it and is ill for quite a long time. And then murders start happening, and he knows and is eaten up by the guilt that his monster is causing these murders. The sad thing is that this monster is only acting out of his circumstances. You know, he's alone in the world, everybody is repulsed by him and sort of automatically goes on the defence. He is cast out, he tries to make friends and nobody wants to know, and all he asks of his creator is, please, can you make somebody who is like me, so that there is somebody who is not repulsed by me and who will actually give me some companionship. And the creator says no. And that is where it goes from, really. It's good, it's worth a read. It's one of my more liked classics. So yeah, recommend if you haven't read it. Then I read It's Kind of a Funny Story by Ned Vizzini. I enjoyed this, actually. I watched the film quite a few years ago and remember quite liking it, although I thought it was a bit something of nothing. I didn't realise it was a book. I've since obviously bought this, read this, and at first I really didn't like it because it had like almost hipster American like teenage chatter. Really bothered me for the first sort of few chapters. I was just like, I can't even read this is ridiculous. And then actually I really enjoyed it. I would say what I felt about this, and I don't know if it's fair to say because Ned Vizzini himself has spent time in a psychiatric hospital, but I feel like it kind of glamorised the experience of psychiatric hospitals, which I think a lot of things do, and glamorise the whole idea that, you know, if life's getting a bit hard, you can just go to a mental ward and meet some crazy people who end up being really good friends and, you know, learning some stuff about your life. And that's not really the impression that you should be giving of going to a mental hospital, especially not to young, impressionable people who are probably not coping great with life anyway. But that said, I did enjoy it. It was good fun. Obviously, you can tell what happened. He went into this mental hospital. He ended up learning stuff about himself, about the people that were in there. So pretty predictable. But it was enjoyable and it was good fun. The only thing I will say is the size of the writing in this book is ridiculous. There is no need for it to be the size it is. I mean, you could have got away with this being 100 pages long. I'm not even joking. Then I read, this isn't really a proper read, but I thought I'd throw it in here anyway, Still Like an Artist by Austin Kleon. I sort of half read this a while ago and it didn't really speak to me, so I put it down. But I really enjoyed it. I read it in like an hour. It's not, you know, it's just little pages and there's pictures and stuff and bits of writing. And it was good fun. Definitely spoke to me. It's basically about how being an artist is about borrowing ideas, I suppose would be the best way to say it. You know, it doesn't say, you know, plagiarise everything, but it just says take ideas from everywhere, use those ideas, use your favourite people's styles, try writing in different styles and see which one merges together to become your own and stuff like this. And it's really interesting, really inspiring, got me in a creative mood, and yeah, it's good fun. Then I read The Beast That Is Labyrinth by Kate Moss, or I heard someone say Mossy for her name, Kate Mossy. I would say that's Kate Moss. Surely it's a silent E. I don't know. Let's throw both of those out there just in case. It's huge. I mean, really, I didn't ever realise how big this book was, but it's a beast. I basically saw this everywhere in charity shops and things like that. And when I see a book that appears everywhere, I kind of start thinking, should I read that just so I can stop seeing it and thinking, oh, should I read that? And I basically put off picking this up, and then I saw this hardback edition and also another one, Sepulchre, which is another book by her, which I don't actually think follows on from this one, which is annoying because that's why I bought it. But it's got the same cover and it matches this one anyway on the shelf. It's just red instead. So I picked them both up because they were hard copy and pretty. And I have to say, I could take or leave this book, to be honest. It wasn't amazing. Basically, I picked it up because it's meant to be like a mystery, sort of Dan Brown-esque thriller, but maybe better. And I think that the problem with this is that it's been marketed wrong. It's not what I would call a thriller. Like, there's mystery and there's murder and stuff, but it's not fast-paced and like dun 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 dun. The story is pretty slow, and there's nothing wrong with that. But the fact is that you go into it expecting something really fast-paced and snappy, and it's just not that, and I don't know why they marketed it as that. I mean, it was okay. It's basically about two women, one who lived in, like, 1200 or something like that in France, and one who was living in, well, I say modern day, this was written in, like, 2006, I think, so, yeah, in 2006, our modern-day woman, Alice, comes across a weird situation-y, cavey thing when she is helping out on an archaeological dig in France, and she finds herself strangely drawn to it and ends up going in there and finding herself in a bit of trouble with the police and detectives and things like that over the whole situation. She ends up finding two bodies in there and a strange, like, labyrinth thing. And our other lady, Alay, is the one that lives in 1200 or whatever it was, and she is also wrapped up with this same labyrinth. Now, what I thought with this is that we kind of don't have a clue what's going on until, like, the last 100 pages. And it's all very well and good having a bit of mystery, but you gotta give us something, like, all we knew is that there was this labyrinth. You might think I haven't given you much information, but that is all we knew. And people were dying because of it, because it was a massive secret and everybody wanted to find out. Obviously, I won't tell you what the last 100 pages were, but we don't know anything until then. And I mean, considering it's a pretty big book, like, that was a bit annoying. So, I enjoyed it. It wasn't too bad. I wasn't like, ugh, thank goodness when I finished it. But I could have done without reading it. It didn't, you know, blow my mind, basically. So, I don't know, I would necessarily recommend that one. Then, because it was Christmas, I read The Lion, the Witch and the Wardrobe by C.S. Lewis. I've never actually read this. I've obviously watched the films. I knew the story, but I've never actually read it, so it's good fun. Just a little cutesy read. It's kind of becoming my Christmas habit now. I read The Magician's Nephew. I read that last Christmas, so I read this one this Christmas. I've got the whole box set, so what I'll probably do is just read one every Christmas. It only took like a day to read, not even that. One sitting and it was done, and it was just cute. I won't go into the story because everybody knows it. So yes, there was that one. Then, I forgot this was in here. Patti Smith's Just Kids. If you have seen my top 10 books of 2014 video, you will know that I loved this. Basically, this is amazing. It's honestly become one of my all-time favourite books. It's basically, I would recommend this to anybody who is interested in going into career in the arts of any kind. Photographer, artist, dancer, writer, whatever you are. Read this because it is really inspiring. It's basically, I didn't know who Patti Smith was when I bought this, which you might think is a bit silly, but I didn't. I just bought it because I'd heard it was good for creative people, and I don't think, if you don't know who Patti Smith is, I don't think that affects your reading of this book. But basically, she is basically the godmother of punk is what she's been sort of titled as. But interestingly enough, reading this book, she never wanted to be a rock and roll artist. She wanted to be a poet, and it just kind of happened that she fell into being a rock and roll artist. And it worked out pretty well for her. Basically, this is just the story of when she left home and her life to try and become an artist, in the way she sort of just left everything and was like, I'm going to make art and I don't care. And she happens to meet this man, Robert, who goes along on the journey with her, and it's basically a love letter to him, I think, really. And the fact that he is passed now, and it's kind of a eulogy for him. That's not spoiling anything. It does say that in the first line of the book. So it's really, really sweet and touching and upsetting, but just wonderful. I would definitely recommend it. Right, that's everything. I told you it was a bit of a beast of a reading month. I suppose a lot of the books I read were quite thin, so I can't really brag too much. But yes, that's everything. So I hope you had a good reading month in December, and let's get on to the new year. Bye.